Well, the tax, if you paid for a government spending of 100 million by increasing taxes by 100 million, you would still get a net increase in GDP. Because you know that if you increase taxes by 100 million, the public doesn't just decrease consumption by 100 million. They decrease consumption by less than 100 million. So you get a net effect, but it's basically the effect of the change in G minus the change in government's, the reduction in consumption due to the increase in tax. There's some net increase in government spending there. And so you do get a net change in GDP. But it's not great, correct? It's not a big multiplier, because it's reduced, because you're kind of counteracting it. So for example, I would say to you, what is the effect of an increase in government spending what is the effect of an increase in government spending on war financed by a decrease in government spending on highways? What do you guys think? What effect will that have? No effect, right? Because they're both the same multiplier, they cancel each other out. What is the effect of an increase in government spending financed by an increase in taxes by the same amount? The government spending is 100 million, the taxes are 100 million, but the public only cuts back spending by 75 million. So you do get a net change of 25 million. It's not the big multiplier you thought of, but it's something, right? What is the effect of an increase in government spending, everybody? The increase in government transfer payments financed by an increase in taxes. What if the government increased transfer payments by 100 million and cut taxes by 100 million to pay for that? Where would that affect you? 0. Because they both have the same multiplier. Okay? So notice there's some questions in the multiple choice and so on discussing that. But here's the thing about taxing. It's great for you, it's not good for me. If the government was going to build universities and pay for it by taxing, I'm going to pay taxes, not you. But the neat thing is, you're not going to have to pay taxes in the future because your parents are paying for the universities today out of their taxes. So that has a relatively small change in GDP, but it sure doesn't affect you guys. It's net gain for you. How about this? How about an increase in GDP financed by borrowing from the public? This is not good for you. Because besides the fact that it crowds out, the increase in government spending is financed by taxes in the future, which is on you people. So, if we can get into an interesting discussion about how you finance government spending, what's the political thing, the political effect, and so on. So this is going to go to you. These simple models can take us in all sorts of directions. We can talk an awful lot about, what should be done. All right. Any burning issues about these diagrams? People? Good. Expected on the exam. 8 marks, 1 of the 4. 8 marks on a calculation like I did today. Okay? All right. Now we get to something that's really neat, very powerful, goes back to the classical position, and it's kind of simple for you guys to follow. And that is aggregate demand and aggregate supply. Okay, now notice, I'm just going to show you my notes, then we're not going to refer to them for a little bit here. We're going to, because I'm just going to explain it to you. I'm going to define aggregate demand here, then I'm going to derive aggregate demand from aggregate expenditure here. I'm going to use equations here, and we're going to do that all the way because it helps you understand. We're going to derive it diagrammatically here. Then we're going to talk about shifts in aggregate demand, but not necessarily right now. Then we're going to talk about aggregate supply, short run, long run, and blah, blah, blah. And then equilibrium. Okay, short run. So, all right. Our next variable, which is an extremely important variable because it is the classical, neoclassical variable, is a change in the price level. And you'll always remember that the neoclassical classical position is that changes in the price level bring about full employment. So let's see, we're going to link all our theories now. Okay, so what we're going to do is, we're going to talk about the aggregate demand. Now remember, what is a demand function? It is the relationship between a price level, a price, and a quantity demanded. Well, it turns out we're going to do this at the macro level. Aggregate demand is the relationship between the price level of the society and GDP, the output of the society. All right? So we're going to work with this. The price level on the vertical and real GDP on the horizontal, real Y. Must be real, everybody. So we're going to ask ourselves, what is the relationship between a change in the price level, it may be caused by inflation or deflation or whatever, and expenditure? I'll give you a clue. Supposing there was a supposing you, everybody in this room, we're okay. We've got income. Our income is solid. Right? Our income is not going to be hurt by a recession. Let's pretend. Okay? We've got the same income. You're a student, you're making 20, let's say you're bringing in 20,000 a year. Okay, good. What if we have a serious recession in Canada? What do you think is going to happen to prices? They're going to fall. They could fall really significantly. For example, restaurant deals are going to fall, hotel rooms are going to fall, movies might fall in price, food prices will fall, gasoline prices will fall. All this wonderful stuff. Now, supposing your income doesn't change and you're still making $20,000 a year, do you think you're going to buy more goods or less goods? Huh? Why not?
Because in micro, there's price falls.
Yeah. Well, so there's price falls, quantity increases, quantity demand increases. I remember, when there's a recession in the U.S., I go to New York or someplace in the U.S., I hang out in New York, because what used to be like a $300 hotel room on Central Park is $100. Huh? Why not? Of course, I'd like to. Yeah, it's great. I hope Spain, I don't want, Spain is kind of dicey now, but like what would be a $300 hotel room in Spain now is probably like $100, because they're in a serious recession, and so on and so forth. If you were to go to, any place where there's a recession, everything is cheaper. So it's great. In Toronto, price, so the point is this, if the price level falls, people buy more goods at that new price level. So as you'll see, the price of oil went to $150. Of course, that cut quantity demanded down. The price of oil fell to $50 in the recession, but that meant there was an increase in the quantity demand of oil in response to that. So prices are changing, but other things are changing. So we're going to see this. Essentially, we'll get a typical demand function. It'll look like this. It could be drawn like this. This is the way I might draw it. All right? Hang on. This is aggregate demand. As the price level falls, the quantity demanded increases. So, for example, if the price level in Canada was 200, then the GDP might be, Y over here might be 6,000. Well, let me say 1.1 billion, trillion, 1.1 trillion. If supposing Canada had significant inflation, if the inflation fell, the argument is there will be more real expenditure. Supposing it drops to like 120, the price level, then this might go up to 1.5 trillion. Here's an interesting thing. With the Pope being in Brazil, there's attention on Brazil right now. Of course, there's been a lot of riots in Brazil. Prices are really high in Brazil. Inflation is high in Brazil. We're not going to talk a lot of time to talk about exchange rates. but there's a disjuncture, there's a kind of split. Get in Brazil, for example, if you were to buy almost anything, let's just say you were to buy baby food, expensive. If you got a plane and went to like the US and bought baby food at the exchange rate, you know, a peso, I think it is, I don't know if it's a peso, what is it? What's the Brazilian thing called? Whatever it is, not like a peso, but anyway, whatever the Brazilian currency is, if you exchange Brazilian currency for US dollars at the rate that the Brazilian government is holding it at, because you kind of got to manage the exchange rate, and went to the US, you can buy 3 times as much. This is a real problem. When that happens, you can pretty well expect the Brazilian currency is going to collapse, right? But inflation is very high. People aren't buying in Brazil. You can't, right? If the inflation fell in Brazil, they'd be able to buy more things. So it's a very simple idea that there's a relationship between the price level and what the public will buy. Cheaper prices across the board, the public buys more. Aggregate demand. All right, that's the first thing. The second thing we're going to see is this. We're going to argue that there is, now just pay attention here, don't copy this down. This is our opening gambit. Everybody? We're going to argue that in macroeconomics, we're going to define for macroeconomics. For macroeconomics, there's a short run and a long run. But the short run and the long run is not defined in the same way as micro. It's defined in relationship to prices. In macro, the long run is when all prices can change, including wage rates and factor, we say factor prices, input prices. The short run is only when, as it were, product prices change, consumer prices change. So in the short run, wages can't change, but the prices of gasoline and the like, food can change. In the long run, wages can change, right? That's fundamental. Under that circumstance, now this was in the classical view, what do you think the classical view is, the neoclassical view? Do they think in terms of the short run or the long run? What do you guys think? What is your conception of economy, the neoclassical conception? What do you think, Alexander? Is there a thought coming through there?
Short run.
Well, think now. What do the classical economists think about the economy? Where does it go?
Full employment.
Yeah, and how does it get there?
Price mechanism.
Yeah. So you can't have any prices fixed. This is the problem. For example, the classical economists would say, the problem with modern economies is governments are fixing wages, they're allowing unions to fix wages, they're giving unemployment benefits. In other words, wages are sticky and the economy is not adjusting. So the classical position is all prices adjust. When all prices adjust, the classical position is full employment. And they generally don't talk about the short run because for them, because it's not really relevant to them. And they didn't talk about, but in the short run, they would admit if factor prices can't change, you might not be at full employment. Okay? The Keynesian argument is that you're often in the short run, that the long run takes time, and you're often stuck in the short run. Okay? So now in the long run, if all prices adjust, the classical position, we'll discuss this more later, is that the economy is at full employment. So when I talk about supply, there's going to be this supply in this diagram, will be right here. This is long run aggregate supply, right here. Right here. And it is, what do you think it is? Long run aggregate supply is at Y star. And the argument is, when all prices are allowed to adjust, everybody ends up at full employment. All right? Interesting, but we've got another thing. Another thing is, and today I'm going to ask you later, this one here, this is short run aggregate supply. And I'm going to tell you this. Don't shame yourselves. I'm going to ask you next day if you don't get this far. It looks like this. Short run aggregate supply is positively sloped like that. Strictly speaking, it should be fairly flat down here and start becoming more steeper and steeper, and then like this. Here's your clue. Short run aggregate supply is determined essentially for the same reasons that the supply function positively sloped in micro. All right, so now, everybody, this is the idea. What we're going to see is, this is the classical argument. Now again, I'm anticipating, and you're going to see as we go through this, I have to explain aggregate demand. That's going to take us, like today we're going to finish that. I'm probably not getting into the supply side. But once we have aggregate demand done, away we go. But ultimately what we're going to do is use the model, right? So the neoclassical position says this. You know what? The economy is usually at full employment, whatever that means. It's there. So we're going to see that an increase in government spending increases aggregate demand, like this. So I'll show you this. We're going to see that aggregate demand increases. This is AD. AD's S for increase in G. Everybody? So aggregate, if you increase government spending, we're going to see how this is. It's going to increase aggregate demand. Then, in the short run, we're going to see this is going to mean, supposing we did this in Canada, we increase government spending. Let me just put our original equilibrium down here. Sorry. Right here. So this will be, say, 120. I'll just say this is our original price level. We're in equilibrium right there. And this gives us short-run equilibrium. So the argument then is, you know what? You guys are increasing government spending, and in the short run, you're going to push up prices. And it's true, you're going to get an increase in Y of some type. But remember I gave you the example of me contracting with somebody asking me to do a kitchen and me doing the kitchen. Initially, and for a period of time, yes, the crew can work 12 hours a day. But in the long run, you can't. You can't work 12 hours a day forever. It's more expensive, right? So temporarily, even if you're like, you can say, my God, I'm fully employed, I'm working, I'm going to school. Well, right now there's an exam coming up, you must be able to work harder. Okay, somehow you do. You can work beyond full employment. Because after all, full employment is not zero unemployment. You can work beyond full employment only temporarily. And then in the long run, so there's inflation in the short run and some increase in Y. In the long run, we're going to say this short run aggregate supply assumes a given wage rate. So first of all, this increase in government spending pushes up prices. But as it pushes up prices, then the workers demand higher wages. So now wages start going up. And it turns out, when wages go up, it costs firms more. We ultimately end up like this. In a new equilibrium here. This is short-run aggregate supply for WS, say, for this new change, right? Actually, it shouldn't be WS, because it's not short-run, it should be 1. And notice where we end up. We end up with no increase in output. Of course we don't. How could we? Ultimately, we're already at full employment. Temporarily, we had an increase in output and some inflation. But in the long run, when all prices adjust, we have no increase in output because now workers are demanding more. When I hired those workers temporarily, they want higher wages. They want overtime. And I can't sustain that. Now things are more expensive for me, and so I end up not wanting to hire them anymore, right? So now I end up, look here, in the long run, there is no increase in output, and we just have inflation. This is a kind of modern expression of the quantity theory of money, i.e., if money is only for transactions, everybody spends all their money, and the economy is at full employment, ultimately the only thing that happens is prices go up. This new approach that monitors the freedom of the 1950s 50s, and 60s, is to say, yes, you're kind of right, Keynes, in the short run, you might affect the interest rate, you might cause a little stimulation, but in the long run, you're going to cause prices to go up, and there's going to be no change in GDP. It's totally inflationary. Monitors. That position won the day by 1975. From 1975 to like 1990, the only policy is basically control the money supply, because thereby you control the quantity of money, and thereby you control prices, and forget about this Keynesian junk. All right? So we'll go into this in detail. Okay, we need to derive money supply. We need to derive AE. So, I'll get rid of this stuff for a moment. Okay. Now here's what I'm going to give you. We're going to say AD, listen to how I define it. Aggregate demand is the relationship between equilibrium income aggregate demand is the relationship between equilibrium income and the price level. That's what it is. And you know what? Ever since we started macro, I kept pounding home an idea for the express purpose of this model. What do you think that idea was? Huh? Kyle.
AD equals what?
Oh my God, Kyle. What a man you are. Unbelievable. Did the rest of you pick that up? When you see equilibrium income, ding, A equals Y. That's it. That's it, right? So it turns out AE equals Y. You know what aggregate demand is? It's equilibrium AE. In fact, some textbooks use AE and AD interchangeably. It's just AE with a price variable. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to give AE a price variable. And basically what I say, AE is an inversely related to the price level. Okay? So no. Here's what we're going to do. We know, very good, Kyle, very impressed. Make sure you show it on this exam. C plus I plus G plus X minus IM. Okay, let's have C. C is 200 plus 0.7 YD. Now, here's my question. So far, it's the same as everything, but I'm going to add a price variable. You got to tell me this. Do you think an increase in prices decreases consumption or increases consumption? What do you guys think? If prices go up, does consumption go down? What do you think? Well, yes. Now, it turns out in my notes, I go through this in a kind of elaborate way, which is kind of the elaborate way you might want to do it. We don't really care. Notice, for you guys, income, like basically say this. One way of deriving this is this. It relates to shifts in consumption. Why does consumption shift? Consumption shifts because of wealth, right? So, if everybody consumed 75% of their income, now as a society, if the society had more wealth, now notice wealth is not income, wealth is wealth. If the society had more wealth, they would spend more. What do I mean by wealth? Well, for example, in Silicon Valley, for example, what is it? Where is it? It's true also in Silicon Valley. I wonder if it's also like Santa Barbara. One of these places anyway, which is actually not in Silicon Valley, but say San Jose or someplace like Essentially, in these places, guess what? In the dot-com boom of the 2000s, or the 1990s, and the sort of, internet boom maybe of the 2000s or whatever, when they paid internet types, they didn't pay them a lot of money. You got hired and you got stock. So if you worked for Apple, you didn't get paid. You got paid like at $50,000 a year, but you got stock options in Apple, right? So at a certain point, these people, like everybody in Silicon Valley, they're paid like $50,000, $60,000 a year. They're not paid more than anybody else, but they're piling up stock options in Apple, right? So it turns out when Apple stock was soaring through the roof, their incomes aren't going up, but their wealth is going up. So you're a person making $60,000 a year, big deal, say, but you've got $2 million in stock at this moment in time. This will affect your consumption, right? This affects your consumption. You're a person with $2 million in stock. You're going to buy an expensive house. So the price of houses in San Jose shot up, even though there's no change in income. So consumption shoots up, right? If wealth goes up, consumption shifts up. Now, one form of wealth is the fixed wealth. It's the wealth that you get from bonds. Okay, everybody. What do you think the effect of an increasing price level has on a bondholder? Supposing you're a person who has bonds and you're making $50,000 a year from your bonds, and the price goes up by 10%. What does that do to you? Your value goes down. Like for you guys, if prices go up, so what? You're going to get a higher wage. If you're a bondholder and prices go up, your $50,000 is now worth $45,000. In countries with inflation, the pensioners are wiped out. The bondholders are wiped out. So the main idea here is this: prices up, decreases fixed wealth, shifts consumption down, and that's the idea. Okay? This is an explanation. You don't have to have it. You just have to understand intuitively. So I'm going to show this like this, or actually make this, for reasons you'll see in a minute, make this 2,000. Minus 4p, right? Now p is going to be to the base of 100, just for our sake. There's different, notice this is an inverse relationship. Okay, what about investment? Investment we'll say is 400 plus 0.2y. Now what do you think? If prices go up, what is the effect of this have on investment? One argument is this. Think about this. Again, these, I guess I should, sometimes you learn these arguments. These are kind of half-baked arguments in any case. But the intuition is good. When prices go up, investment goes down. One explanation is when prices go up, the demand for money goes up. When the demand for money goes up, interest rates go up. When interest rates go up, investment goes down. Everybody? One explanation. So investment is inversely related. So I'm going to put here minus, I'll say 1 times P. Right? Okay. And then what about government spending? Well, it has nothing to do with anything. So let's say it's 5,000. We could have something, but we're not going to. Exports. Exports are going to be, I'm going to have them be 6,000. And how do you think exports are related to prices? What do you think happens to Canadian exports if Canadian prices go up? Let's supposing there's inflation of 10% in Canada, but no inflation in the United States. What do you think happens to Canadian exports? Do they go up? Or do they go down?
They go up because their prices are.
Well, think about it. You're selling blackberries to the U.S., produced, say, here. Now, the price of blackberries goes up by 10%, but there's no change in prices in the U.S. Do you sell more or less blackberries? Less. No, if you're producing chairs here and trying to sell them in the U.S. and they go up by 10%, if you're producing lumber here and it goes up by 10%, you sell less, okay? So good thinking about it. Prices up, exports down. So I'll say here, another minus 1. So all I'm doing is